Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Riana Milne, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I cannot thank you enough for making time for us to do this. And I'm so excited about our time together. I'm super excited about the books you've written and the speeches. The things that you're doing to make a difference in people's lives is just unbelievably inspiring. And I'm so excited to have you here. So like we talked about before we record, everybody has a story and our passion is to help them tell it. And so with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then I want to talk about anything you're working on today and then things that you're working on for tomorrow. Okay.
Sure. Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for being here. So tell us where you were born.
Okay. Outside of Philadelphia, I'm definitely a Philly girl.
Yeah.
I move quick. I talk fast.
I love it.
I have creative ideas always flowing. So yeah, I was born in the Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania area.
Were you raised there? Did you grow up there?
Yes, from kindergarten through high school, I went to the same school with the same kids. So that was really nice to be able to do that. And then I went off to Penn State for
You're a
degree.
Nittany Lion. I love it.
Yeah, broadcast communication. That's what I went for.
Oh, that's cool. So our next door neighbor is an alum from Penn State.
Oh, okay.
Great guy. Yeah. So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Actually, when I started modeling and working, I started modeling at age 12. I won a scholarship to John Robert Powers Modeling School, which was at the time $500 and would have been a huge expense for my family with 5 kids. So I was really honored to win that. And soon after that, within 2 years, I was modeling for department stores, Wanamaker, Strawbridge and Clothier. Then I got this amazing job with a radio station. It was called WFIL Radio. It was the top AM station. FM did not exist back then. And we had all the cool concerts come into town. So I was like, working, making $20 an hour as a kid, like picking up Alice Cooper from the airport or dancing on stage with Freddie Mercury from Queen. So these were the jobs.
How cool. So you got to rub elbows with these people.
Oh, yeah. A lot of entertainers. I was keeping a long list at one time, like over 35 top bands, singers, entertainers. Even Joe Frazier was the top boxer at the time.
Wow.
So, you never knew who you were going to meet. And that sent me out all over the Philly, Jersey area doing PR and promotions and marketing and selling all kinds of products for the radio station. So I got a brilliant marketing and sales background from my mentor there, whose name was.
And when did you start that?
I was 14 when I interviewed. I had to be 16 as soon as I got one of the top 10 positions. I said, look, I can't lie. I'm not 16.
Right.
They're like, we don't care. You're like our second choice out of 10 and we're keeping you. Just make sure your mom gets you to the jobs on time. And as soon as you can get your driver's license at 16, then you'll be driving on your own. And then they gave me this big, like, sharp Camaro to drive with Peter Paul candies all over it. So it was a great job to have as a kid. I think that's one of my favorite childhood memories, actually.
That was really cool. So in high school, what was your favorite subject?
English and writing.
Yeah.
Actually, I won the Who's Who of American High School English
There you go.
It's only one person gets it, the senior grade. And I was so excited to tell my mom. I mean, I was writing poetry. I had about 200 poems published in poetry magazines as a teenager and wrote for the yearbook and the newspaper. And I always got A's in English. And I took it home and my mom said, well, why would they give it to you?
Oh.
So when I am, today is a life and love coach helping people through childhood trauma. So
Yeah,
a lot of people say, well, what were some of yours? And as one
yeah,
was never getting a compliment,
yeah,
never something was never good enough, right?
yeah.
So when I finally became a number one best-selling author of Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve, and the sister book, what goes along with it, which is about mindset for success, which is
Yeah.
called Live Beyond Your Dreams, and
Mhm.
they ended up in the Barnes and Noble bookstores. That's when I remember my first compliment. My mom read them. She goes, "These are really good." I'm
Oh,
like, "Oh
wow.
my God."
Yeah.
I was
Are you feeling
52 years
okay?
old and
Right?
I got a
Check her for a
compliment.
fever.
Hey. So I'm like, wow, thanks, mom. It's
Yeah.
like that was huge to get a
No
compliment.
kidding.
Once I became a best-selling author and in the top bookstore in the country,
That had
so
to have felt amazing.
yeah, it did. It really did. And it's the
That's
books help a lot of people. So, you can't have a great relationship without feeling fabulous about yourself, which is
yeah,
mindset. And once you have mindset, if you don't know the dating rules and how to have an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationship, and dating world is so dangerous today,
yeah,
you're not going to have the good relationship or heal the trauma. So, the books are meant to go together to help people have their best life that
yeah.
they desire and then to have the love that they deserve.
I love that. So who was the most influential person to you growing up?
I love my English teacher, Mr. Hamilton. And then when
Really?
I went on to get my, yeah, he was great. He was really a nice man and so inspirational about my writing. And, I
Mhm.
went into tears after, I found out I won the award. I said, my mom wants to know why I got this.
Yeah,
And he goes, oh my God, I spearheaded the committee. Don't you know how good you are? And I'm like,
yeah.
well, not really. I just write because I love it. So he was very motivational to just keep writing. You're going to see. You're going to
It's
be
hard when you don't have that encouragement at home, you know?
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
it affects your self-esteem, the whole thing.
Yeah. And then I had my mentor professor for my triple master's in psychology at Rowan University, Dr. Z. Benjamin Landing. And he sponsored my master's thesis. And once I wrote it, it was called I was helping a lot of teenagers in the Atlantic City, Ventnor, and Margate area. It was called Teen Vision.
Wow.
And I did pre-tests and post-tests about trying to raise their confidence, their self-esteem, cut down the high-risk behaviors, the bullying, and increase their grades, right? So it was a 6-month project. And when I put it together, it goes, oh my God, you wrote a dissertation. I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is. I just
Right.
wanted it to be good,
Right.
so it has was over 200 pages and had 88 professional resources in there. So I was very proud of that project. So he was a great mentor. And also my father that we didn't know growing up. He was an FBI CIA guy. So my
Mm.
dad was like James Bond. And he taught a lot of valuable lessons because he was also the number one track star in the country,
Oh,
track and
cool.
field. Yeah. And went on to be secretary of the AAU and win the Sullivan Award for, being outstanding in athletics. But he taught me the lesson of the 5 Ds for success. And since then, I kind of made them 8 Ds as I've been teaching my clients to succeed. So that's a lesson that I carry on and carry through. And I mention it in the Live book,
Yeah.
that always helped me stay motivated and on track when, I have the 8 Ds in my mind to keep going
Yeah.
because
For
times
your
do get tough.
foundation.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So let's go back for just a second, if it's okay. So you graduate high school and you go to Penn State. Why did you choose Penn State?
Um, Actually, because I still wanted to work for the radio station.
Okay, that's
I
all right.
didn't want to give up my job in
It was
Philly.
a cool job. I
So,
wouldn't have wanted to give it up either.
yeah, my first year I stayed at a local campus and I really didn't, there was no college life. So, by the second year, I said, oh, okay, I'm going to go up to main campus. I joined a sorority, I joined a fraternity. I had a good time, but I kept driving back to do great gigs with the radio
Yeah,
station. So I was in broadcast communication, so it was good for me to keep that job. And actually, I was going to be head of promotions when I got out, and that's what
right.
they had told me. And then I fell in love in college and got married and moved to Erie, PA. So that kind of ended my career and what I wanted to do. But I ended up working for a CBS TV station as continuity director. And I wrote all the local ads and created ads for TV Guide. I don't even know if that still exists today, but
I don't
those were
either.
some of the things that I was doing. Yeah.
So, and that was where now? In Michigan?
Erie, Erie, PA.
Or Erie, PA. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
so you get married, you fall in love, you get married, you graduate college, right?
Hmm.
Bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism.
Yes.
Okay.
Broadcast communications. Yeah.
Now broadcast communications. And then you move to Erie, you're working for CBS up there, a local TV station,
Right.
right? And then what happens?
Then by age 26, I was modeling since I was 12, as I had told you.
Mhm.
And I decided to open a model and talent agency in school. So I did. And I opened up with my first month's rent. This was after I had a divorce because I married a man, had two daughters, but unfortunately, he stole $200,000 from my mother.
Oh no.
So after that fraud, there was a bankruptcy. I'm 26 years old,
Hmm.
bankruptcy for $750,000. And I said, Mom, I will pay you back.
Yeah.
So I just thought I have to control my own life. I had to pick my kids up from school at 3 o'clock, so I couldn't have a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
So I said, I will open a model and talent school and agency. And it was funny because back in Philadelphia, I was modeling and teaching at John Robert Power School. After I
Right.
won my scholarship, they hired me as a teacher. And so I first went to get a job at John Robert Powers, and they're like, "You're too old to model." I said, "I'm 26 years old." They're like, "No, we're not interested." I said, "Fine." And I walked out and I said, "Watch me." And
Wow.
that's what I teach the watch me mindset for success.
Yeah.
You tell me no, I'm going to go and open up my own school and agency.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, they had no clients, they were closed. The owner of John Robert Powers, Gary Ross, happened to call and says, I just need to know who this person, Riana, is. I'm like, Gary, how are you? It's Terry Milne. You know, that's the name I grew up with,
Right.
Terriana. He goes, Are you the one that is Riana Model and Talent? I said, Yes, that's me. He goes, Why didn't you work for my school? I said, 'Cause she didn't hire me. She said I was too old.
Right.
And I model, and I'm still doing modeling gigs, and I'm 66. All right. So you're never too old for commercial print and television commercials and TV gigs. You know, you're never too old. So
I've
it
seen
was
some of
that
your
mindset.
photos. I've seen some of
Yeah.
your photos, recent
Oh,
photos, and you're a knockout. I mean,
oh, thank you.
66,
Thank
my
you. So I
goodness.
enjoy it part time. You know, it's not what I do full time, but I've always liked it. And I'm like, why not? You know, why
Yeah.
not do senior modeling? The only thing is, I don't get a lot of jobs because I'm not the typical grandma.
Right.
You know, I'm not old and fragile with gray hair. And it's like, hello, get out of stereotypical world. You know,
Yeah.
grandmothers today are pretty sharp, you know, so I don't get hired as much as I should because I'm not that typical 66-year-old, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I think you look like $1 million. Just my
Thank you.
opinion. So,
Thanks.
so you open this modeling studio and school, right?
Yes.
You open the school, and what happens after that?
Within 6 months, I won at the International Model and Talent Association. There's a big competition, and I got Educational Excellence Award. And within 1 year, I won the School of the Year, the International Model and Talent School of the Year.
Great
And I
job.
opened with 4 students in my first class. Within the year, I had 25 in a waiting list.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of people out in LA and in Europe for modeling, if they were the model types, if they were commercial, real people. They were different markets that were better for them. New York was about soap operas, LA was more TV and movies.
Yeah.
So it really depended on each talent. I even had a local dancer that wanted to be a rockette, so she became a rockette. I had this guy that was an auto mechanic, and his dream was to be on Baywatch. And I'm like, let's get you on Baywatch. And
Wow.
he did, you know. So we went to competition. We had competitions in LA in January and New York in July.
Wow.
So twice a year, I would train
Incredible.
people for 6 months and take them out to compete internationally and pick up big world agents. So I had that work for 10 years and I absolutely loved it. And then I
Yeah,
sold
I
off
can
my
tell.
school and agency because I was picked up by New York. And then from there, I said, I've always wanted to be a counselor.
Hmm.
And my first experience with wanting to be a counselor, I was 16 years old, and my very best childhood friend was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh no.
And I'd asked my mom at that time, Mom, I need to go to counseling. I'm really sad over Michael's death. And she said, No one in this family will ever go to a counselor. And I said, Then I will grow up and become one.
Wow.
So that was always going to be part of my journey. But at the
Yeah.
time, I was in the radio business and television business. So I said, I'm just going to stay with that because
Right.
I'm really enjoying it. But one day I'll be a counselor.
Right.
So at age 37, I went back for my master's in psychology. In year 2000, I opened my company, Therapy by the Sea, which is based in South Jersey.
Hmm.
And then I always knew I wanted to retire in Florida. So it
Really.
was like getting, over after 14 years at my practice, the only thing I knew is I was going from a booming practice down to zero
Right.
when I moved to Florida. So it's
Right.
starting over all over again in
Yeah.
2014. But to me, it was worth it. It's like, I'll do it. I've done it before. I'll do it again. So I
There we
moved to
go.
Delray Beach. And then in 2017, I went global right after one of the hurricanes here. I'm like, the winds have changed. Time to go global. That's what I did.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So when did you decide to start writing your books?
2006, I came out with a book called Watch Me, A
Okay.
Bold New Motivational Attitude for Personal Success. And then I rewrote that into Live Beyond Your Dreams. I took on a writing coach because I really wanted to get the book into Barnes and Noble. That was like a childhood goal of mine. And so I wrote the Live book, and then I went through a second love trauma. The first one was the first marriage. And here, after that all happened, I was basically working 5 jobs when I moved
Hmm.
to New Jersey to pay back my mom. So that took me 16 years. Plus, that man went for child support. So it was not an easy life as a single mother,
Yeah.
working a lot, but every experience taught me something. Like I worked in the schools at every grade level, kindergarten through college. I was a trauma counselor. So I had the emotionally upset kids, the bullies, oppositional defiant, the ADHD kids. They were all my students. And I worked in a mental health ward for kids ages 5 through 19. I worked in drug and alcohol rehab centers, one for teenagers, one for women from the prison system. I wrote a newspaper column called Single by the Sea. I was also became an officiant in 1997, so I was doing a lot of marriages on the weekends, and I ran a
You were
singles
you were
group.
officiating marriages. So
Yes.
you were the
Mhm.
in by the power vested in me person.
Yes, absolutely. I'm still Reverend Rihanna.
I
And
love it. That's cool.
yeah, and they were all originally written ceremonies, so really beautiful. I pulled in a lot of spiritual resources to make my ceremonies very different, very beautiful. So I was hired by all the casinos in Atlantic City and the top catering halls. And then I also ran the Atlantic City Singles Networking Group. So I had singles events twice a month. So those were and I taught at Stockton University. So is that seven? At one time I had 7 jobs. So, this was like however I could earn money
Yeah.
to keep paying my mom back.
Yeah.
So like I said, it wasn't an easy life, but from all that experience, I kept seeing the childhood trauma keep repeating itself.
Yeah.
So in 2012, I created the childhood trauma checklist after I had a second love trauma and said, what is going on?
Hmm.
And his last comment to me when I annulled the marriage was, I don't know what's the matter with me. I sabotage everything I love. And by then I'm a therapist and I'm like, I don't know either. You have something I've never seen or heard of or was taught because childhood trauma was not even taught. That was not even a term when I went to school.
So
And
he said he sabotages everything.
yeah, and he couldn't figure out why. And I didn't know why either. So that's when I went back into the psychological journals in the psychological library and started researching what is this because I needed to know what it was because it's the second time I have had someone with a sociopathic tendency. And it was huge. I mean, it wreaked havoc on my job. You know, he lost his job. It was all over the news. He got caught with porn on his computer, and he was a principal at a school.
Oh,
So not only was it a big community scandal, it ruined my life. It took my business that I worked so hard on down to 50% because of his actions, his impulse. And I'm like, this could never happen again. What is this? You know, this secret life stuff.
did you figure
And it
out what it
came
was?
down, oh, it came down to childhood trauma. Absolutely. That is the unhealed childhood trauma is a direct result of people struggling in life, love, and business. And now that's what I'm an expert on around the world.
Wow.
So, you know,
How
Love
cool.
Beyond Your Dreams, that #1 bestseller, came from
Mhm.
the result of my research. I got up to 400 pages. I'm like, this is a fabulous book, but I can't keep writing more. So that's when I created my workbooks for my singles and my couples.
Yeah.
And I also work with straight and LGBTQ populations, age 16. My oldest client's 80.
Hmm.
So, you know, when people have repetitive marriages and they're like, well, I'll read a few self-help books and think that's going to change everything, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And they don't know what if they're doing wrong. And I said, I get it. I was in your shoes. You can't change what you don't know or understand.
Right.
So once I learn this information, then everyone coming into my therapy practice, I'm like, I know exactly what's going on because this happened to you as a kid. This is
Mhm.
what's coming into your relationship. This is how we fix it. And then people just love the coaching, and then my coaching practice grew, and I have clients around the world.
Yeah, and
And
there's
that's
something to be said for coaching.
oh, it's
You go
fabulous.
to a counselor, right? And the counselor says, "Okay, do this." Right? And then it's
Yeah.
basically up to that person as to whether they do it or not. A coach can
Well,
come alongside them.
counseling is more you have to do a diagnostic code. So to me, it's connotating someone sick. Okay, you're depressed, you're anxious, you've got this, you've got that. It's a code that follows you in your medical history the rest of your life.
Right,
Coaching does not give you a code. It says you're going through a hard time. Let's fix this.
right.
It's very solution focused. It's very educational. Counseling processes your feelings.
Yeah,
That's why when people come to me, it's like I've been through 7 counselors. I still have the same trauma. I'm still getting bad guys. What am I doing wrong? I said, well, are you ready to learn now?
right.
Because it's very educational. I have to teach a lot.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.